Shalom, everyone, to Living with the Times. This week's Torah portion is Mishpatim. Ve'ela Mishpatim asher tasim lifneihem. The Torah portion begins, and these are the judgments, these are the laws, the statutes that you shall put before them. So Reb Shlomo Carlebach has a beautiful explanation of the idea of before them. These are the laws you should put before them. So he explains that when it says before them, it means and not after them. And how did he explain it? He brought an example of a thief. Someone, for whatever reason, decides to become a thief and somewhat successful, but then he's caught. And once he's caught, then he finds out all the laws of what happens if you're caught stealing. He said, but in the Torah, it tells us not to steal. So when we learn the Torah and we learn that you shall not steal, that in a certain way, once you learn that before you even conceive of being a thief, if you learn it before, then that will, in a sense, protect you from ever going that route. So that's how he explained you should put these laws before them. In other words, when we learn the Torah, the way he actually said it is, once you learn in the Torah that you shouldn't steal, how could you steal? Once you know that this is God's will, once you know that this is the moral and ethical compass that God expects from human beings, well, how could you even think of stealing at that point? So that's how I explained that you should put these laws before them. On a deeper level, what it means is that when we learn the Torah, it should be in front of us. In other words, it should be front of our consciousness and not as an afterthought. In other words, one could learn the Torah, but if one doesn't integrate it, if one doesn't make it part of them, then the Torah will be an afterthought, and it won't have the same power as if you put it in front of your consciousness. There's a verse that says, Shaviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. I put God before me at all times. In other words, I strive for a consciousness that I'm aware of God's presence at all times. And so if I know that God in his Torah tells us not to steal, if it's in the front of my consciousness, any time I get into a situation where even on a very subtle level, I might be guilty of stealing someone's time or someone's money, not on a purposeful way, but if God and the Torah are in the front of our consciousness, then it's very different than if it's an afterthought in the back of my consciousness. If we go back 1 week to Parshat Yitro, that's when we received the 10 Commandments. And the second commandment is, you shall have no other gods before me. And so the term in Hebrew for other gods is Elokim Acherim, other gods. And before me literally is Al Panai. We could almost say in my face. In other words, we could only imagine what an insult it is to God to, in a gross kind of example, worship idols, or on a more subtle level, believe in powers other than God. And so in Hebrew, the word for Elokim Acherim, other gods, the word for other also means after, Acher, something that happened before, and now it's after. And so again, here in a deep way, it's saying, God is saying, if my presence is just an afterthought to you, that's like having other gods, because that means you're putting all kinds of other ideas and concepts and trust and belief in all kinds of other things. It could be money, it could be politics, it could be nationalism, it could be ego, all kinds of other things that people put their trust in, other people, the stock market, whatever it is. And by God saying that you shall have no other gods before me, again, the word before me means al panai, in my face. But in a positive way, what God wants is a face-to-face relationship with us. We're told that when God created Adam and Eve, it was an androgynous being, male and female together. And then God separated the male from the female, Adam and Eve. And we're told that when they were one body, they were back to back. And that's again the idea of other gods, other powers, other things that we put our trust in. But once they were separated, we're told that they could now turn towards each other and be face to face. So if we analyze some of our relationships, either between us and God or between us and other people, there's some relationships that we could term back to back. There isn't really a deep connection there, not really a deep intimacy. It's back to back. But then there are relationships that are face to face. They're open, they're honest, they're true, they're sincere. And this is like being face to face. So that is the type of relationship that God wants with human beings. That is what he wants, is a relationship, a face-to-face relationship. And so we should be blessed to not put the Torah as an afterthought, not put our relationships with God and others as an afterthought, but that we should face others with an open heart, with sincerity, with honesty, and we should be able to give and receive face to face.